Dev, what's going on, my man? Ethan, how's everything going with you today, pal? Hopefully that shoulder's starting to come back into game shape. Got to get you back on the field. Doing awesome, man. A little bit hot here in Vacaville. It was 103 today, so kind of a blistering day for everybody here in the northern part of the Bay Area. Got a great guest today, Brandon Bullett of Bullett Performance Training down in Clovis is going to talk with us a little bit about some strength and conditioning and something that I think is super important these days when everybody's trying to figure out what to do, how to get an edge. So I'm really excited to talk with him. Got his name from a very good friend of mine who is a baseball coach, Rob Bruno with NorCal Baseball, and said this is the premier strength training guy down in the Fresno area. So Brandon, I just talked with him a little while ago. He's on he's meeting with a parent and said that he was going to join us shortly after that. So looking forward to talking with him. Lining up some guests. If you guys have questions, make sure you hit the comment section below and fire off a question that I'm more than happy to ask Brandon about strength and conditioning. So the other thing is, if you guys have questions about maybe a new guest or a new topic, be sure to hit me up either on email or on Instagram, sending me a comment about a particular area that you're interested in learning more about. Anytime I can get somebody or get your feedback on some areas that you'd like to hear about, I'll do my best to get them on my show, whatever you want to call what I'm doing these days. So our guys at St. Helena Fitness, Michael Gastelum, you guys look like you guys are ready to go open up soon. So if you guys haven't followed St. Helena Fitness, make sure you do that. They do an awesome job with getting people up and going, and I'm fired up that they're going to start training again. They're doing an outside. I saw they're doing an outside boot camp starting, I think, next week or a week after that. So looking forward to checking that out. So we might have to make a short trip over to the area to check it out. So good to hear that they're up and going, and pro baseball up in Sacramento. Hopefully you guys, Rob, you guys are getting your stuff going soon. June 13th is the boot camp with St. Helena Fitness. So hopefully if you're in the area, you guys can give a drive up to see them, maybe check them out, go do some wine tasting, and do a couple things all at once. So just waiting for my guy to jump on. Again, if you guys have questions that I can ask, I'd be more than happy. Brandon just sent me something that says finishing right up with his parent meeting, so we might log off or just keep this rolling, but he should be logging on here shortly. But the good thing is, it sounds like the baseball is going to start opening up here soon, and I'm excited that's starting to kind of change a little bit. And obviously, there's a lot of world events going on right now, so hopefully everybody's safe out there and doing their best to help educate everybody about the inequalities out there. So if you guys have questions, make sure you send your questions to on the comment section below about strength and conditioning, and I'll be sure to ask Brandon. We'll obviously go over his background, but he's actually from Syracuse, New York, and was a big hockey player. Oh, there he is. My man Austin Byler down in Arizona. What's going on, Brandon?
Hey, how's it going, Nicholas?
I'm doing great, doing great. How about you?
Good.
How's everything in Fresno or
Oh, it's good.
Clovis?
It's warm.
It's
It's
warm.
warm. Yeah.
Yeah, it was 103 today in Vacaville, so
Okay.
I totally get what you're saying right now. That it's warm.
Let me check. I think it's pretty close to you. I think we're all right. We're 99. We're 100 degrees, so
So
not too far behind.
I got you beat. I got you beat.
You do
Uh,
today.
hey, I appreciate you logging on. I kind of gave a little brief intro for you, but for those that are just logging on, Brandon Bullett is the head coach and owner of the Bullett Performance Training Center down in Clovis. Was born and raised in Syracuse, New York. And was a big hockey player.
Yep.
And the connection that we had was I've got a good friend, Rob Bruno, who works with NorCal Baseball, and I was talking to him about these Instagrams that I'm doing, and he said, if you want to talk with somebody in strength and conditioning, this is the guy to call. So I started kind of following Brandon online. His handle is Bullet Gym, I believe, correct?
Yep. Yep. Bullet Gym. 2 L's, 2 T's.
And I started following him, and then we had a conversation last week, and I just totally was like, this guy knows what he's talking about. And Eric Cressy is somebody that you follow as well, and you've learned under. So, what else am I missing about your bio there, Brandon?
Not much. I think you touched it all. I mean, we'd be here for a while if we wanted to go
Sure.
all through it. And I want to jump off and say apologize if like I get distracted a little bit. So we're actually open right now, and I got people running in and out, and we're in the middle of operations. So if I get kind of distracted and look away for a second, I do apologize.
Sure, absolutely, absolutely. We'll start with some questions and everything. And again, if you guys have questions, hit the comment section below, and we can pass them on to Brandon and see if we can answer your strength and conditioning questions. But first off, Brandon, you're a native of Syracuse, New York, and you ended up out in Clovis. Talk about that and the that move.
Okay. So it's a little bit of an ironic story. Like I said, like you said, from Syracuse, I played junior hockey, and for those of you that don't know, junior hockey is 15 to 20-year-old young athletes, and we're looking to either go college or pro. Most go the the college route, and they try to get a scholarship. There's some showcases that the leagues put on. And for me and my style of play, I was more of the physical. I was more of kind of the rough and tough style. And that doesn't play in college hockey. So I had a few coaches approach me, and they offered me some opportunities at trying out for pro teams. And as a 20-year-old kid, you're like, an opportunity to pro hockey team. Let's go for it. And
Mm-hmm.
playing pro sports as a young athlete, those are any kid's dreams. So took a big risk. Went to try out in a couple of leagues. In this one's called the Central Hockey League in Texas.
Okay.
It was actually for the Texas Brahmas. Weekend tryout, and I ended up going in there. Again, not really the skill guy. Everybody's looking for more of the physical, and there's only a few spots for those guys on the team. So ended up not making that team, and I got sent to another team in Alabama. And I ended up making that team, and it's called the Huntsville Havoc. Played in that team for a few weeks. Some guys from higher leagues got sent down, got cut, released, and as that trickle-down effect happens, the younger guys kind of get pushed out. So I got pushed out after a few weeks for playing with the Huntsville Havoc, and then just kind of went back to the drawing board, and I ended up finding a way to make it onto a team in Indiana. And throughout all this, like I said, I played junior hockey in Bakersfield, met a girl from Fresno, and we stayed in contact ever since. And long story short, I ended up quitting hockey in 2013 once we found out we were having a child. So I hung the skates up and moved out here to Fresno and kind of started building some roots here.
There you go. Okay.
So yeah, that's kind of a long story and kind of how I got into training a little bit. I'll touch on that. I was playing baseball in high school, all through high school. I was going to go play in junior college. Tore my rotator cuff in the summer, just before my freshman season in college, and was opting, I had two choices, get surgery or strength training.
Okay.
So I took the strength training route and, decided to dive more in and started reading and trying to learn the body, starting from there. And I've always been fascinated with it, and I'm not a big guy, sitting at 5'10", and Playing college baseball and pro hockey, I had to make sure I was strong and can handle the stresses of sport. Again, rough stuff. So hitting, it's like a train wreck every time you hit someone on the rink. So I had to make sure I was strong, and I really loved the gym. I really loved the weight room. It was a good place. I mean, you get a lot of friends when you go in and weight train, and you make a lot of memories when you're sweating next to a guy, and you guys are both, humping it and trying to make sure that you guys are both in shape and you push each other. And it created such a bond. So I fell in love with it, and that's kind of where my passion grew, and I kind of just followed it.
Now, one thing we talked about, Brandon, when we were on the phone last week is that, there's a lot of strength coaches out there, and a lot of people that have niches that are in the marketplace. But you guys really specialize in over-the-top sports, volleyball and baseball. Talk about the differences and why you guys specialize primarily. Obviously you guys work with everybody, but you really are known in the Central Valley for what you guys do with baseball and volleyball.
Yeah, so it wasn't an on-purpose thing either. It was more so, I actually started with hockey. Again, from my hockey background, I was on the ice almost every single day, 8 to 10 hours a day, teaching hockey lessons. Some kids and I were going to the gym. I didn't have a facility when I first moved here, so I was taking some kids to the local gym here, or the track, or anything outside, and working on agility, speed, explosive. I ended up buying a couple med balls, and we were just doing some simple med ball stuff, throwing them, tossing them, sprinting, chucking them left and right, just trying to get strong and explosive. And I ended up getting introduced to another strength coach, and we kind of partnered up. And it was a funny story. I was working out one day in the gym at the GB3 here, which is a local box gym. And I saw a kid looking over. I was looking over at him, and he wasn't really understanding what he could do with it. So I went over. I started helping him, and kind of showing him how to use the machine. Turns out he was a baseball player at a popular school around here for baseball players, so Buchanan High School, which has a great history of baseball. And I ended up sharing with him that I have a small facility, and we do a little bit of training out of it, and I invited him to come down. So from there, I think I started with him on a Saturday. And on Wednesday, I had 15 baseball players walking in the door with him, pretty much the whole team, saying hey, we want to start training with you. So then I'm like, all right, well, let's go ahead. So at first I was just trying to be general and just trying to be just a good strength coach, in general. And then those kids started bringing kids, and then those kids started bringing kids, and it just was a rapid fire from there. And it just became baseball players after baseball players after baseball players. So I started thinking maybe I got something here. Maybe it's something that I should really dive in and find out. We could maybe take over the baseball community here. And I looked around, and there wasn't many strength facilities or performance facilities working with baseball. So I said, all right, well, let's go be the best baseball guys. Let's go be the guys that take over all the baseball players, and diving in at what happens with the shoulder, how the body should work, rotational, overhead demands, and just kept learning from there.
How are those? You talked about the shoulder and everything, and overhead movements. Talk about the specifics of the shoulder, the elbow, things like that for baseball players. That's so critical.
Well, what's so critical is you got to hold that baseball, and you got to have everything's got to be working together, and everything's got to be sharing the stress, and everything timing's a huge thing. So we look at really when every player comes into us, we take an initial evaluation. We go over and we basically movement screen them. During that screening, we take a look at how the arms move, how the shoulders move, what happens with the rib cage when they take their arms overhead. Are they more of getting extension through leaning back, and what happens essentially? And from that, we really take a good idea to get a good glimpse at what's going on with their body. Are they underactive? Do they not have good timing? Do they not have good strength? Is the motor control not working well? What's going on? So from there, we design an individualized program. From the shoulder blades have to upwardly rotate well. The ball, basically the name of the game is keeping the ball centered in the socket so that they can rotate externally, internally, and all that. There's a lot that has to go right. You got a lot of powerful muscles working against some little muscles like the lats and the pecs. Are fighting for a ton of internal rotation. While that posterior cuff, the rotator cuff holds on and tries to keep ball sent into the socket. And there's a lot that goes on there, and I could go over every scenario. We'd be here forever. But
now, I know there's. Sorry about that.
That's okay.
There's kids that are watching this, and obviously you see a lot on a daily basis. At what age, Brandon, do you recommend players start really getting into the whole strength and training part?
We've got a lot of kids that come in here at 11, 12 years old. That's about as low as we'll go in our facility. Only reason being is we've got I wouldn't say a difficult program, but it can be extensive and it can be simple at the same time. For the young guys, we just focus on good movement, the basics: squatting, lunging, hinging, pushing, pulling, anti-rotation, anti-flexion, anti-extension, so a lot of the basic movement patterns, sprinting, jumping, throwing, stuff like that. As they progress to get older, then we start to get a little bit more detailed in our program design. And the benefit about ours is everything is individualized. So if we get a 12-year-old kid in here that hasn't ever touched the weight, we have a lot of tools and a lot of methods and protocols that we can adapt to that, and we can meet that kid where he's at. Or if we get which right now I think we've got 4 or 5 pro baseball players in there training, we can get really specific and we can get really detailed and kind of look at what that athlete needs. So like for instance today, some of our pro guys were out throwing live bullpens, live ABs, sorry. And we would take video, and we'll see where guys are maybe inefficient with their movement. Are they losing tension in their hip? So they're kind of driving more towards third base if they're a right-handed pitcher. And then trying to come all the way across their body. How do we implement corrective exercises or med ball exercises and teach them to stay in that back hip and be able to drive from their hips? So we can get as basic as we need to, and as particular and as detailed as we need to as well.
So we got our first question. It just came across live. It's from Austin down in Phoenix. He said, "What's a good way to start for a coach wanting to implement a movement screen?"
So I started using the FMS, so the functional movement screen. I started really basic and just trying to identify what those movement patterns were trying to tell us. They have a really good, simple system that's easily repeatable. And when I first started doing the movement screens, that's where I was using for every single athlete. Once I started to learn a little bit more and get a little bit more in depth, I started taking derivatives of the FMS and a little bit more of the SFMA. So the selective functional movement screen, and I just kind of pieced some stuff together. Ours, I guess you would say, is a little bit of a hybrid. Some particular stuff from the FMS, some mixed in from some stuff that I've stolen from other great strength coaches. And that's pretty much where I would start. The functional movement screen is a pretty good starting point.
One of the things, Brandon, up in where I live in Vacaville, we're still sheltered in place, and it sounds like in Fresno you guys are starting to open up a little bit more. But everybody lost their baseball season, whether in high school or pro baseball is behind schedule with where they usually are. What's the biggest area that a player should look at to work on now as they get ready for summer baseball, whether it's working with their arm, their legs, that sort of thing?
I would say the biggest thing right now is do what you can with what you have. If you're closed, if the gym's up there closed up, if you don't have any weight equipment, start to keep, and it's kind of like a mental thing. You got to think like, hey, I'm not going to get like this big pump. I'm not going to move a lot of weight, but what I can do is drive home good movement patterns. So, for instance, in like a squat, holding the bottom for 10, 20, 30 seconds and driving home good movement patterns and really owning those positions and those patterns, those make a big difference. Split squats or push-ups or any, body weight exercise that you can hammer. Really take your time and understand that slowing the motion down and controlling will strengthen those joints and drive home good movement patterns for when you do get back to weights and stuff like that. See you, fellas. So that's where I would start. And then sprinting, just trying to move fast, get explosive, use hills if you have hills. Hill sprints are a great way to develop speed and power. And just, again, be cognizant that you're not gonna be able to throw around some weight, and just do what you can with what you have. Honestly, keep it simple.
Yeah, I think one of the things, when I was playing baseball, and probably when you were, it was conditioning was just run, for time. And
Sure.
we obviously learned that sprinting is probably the biggest thing uh, to improve on. What's another way to become a little bit more explosive and dynamic for people that either A, don't have a gym that's open, or B, that have a gym but they have a lot of time on their hands right now when they're at home that they can work
A lot of things that we use, a lot of drills that we use here are skipping, hopping, like pogo jumps.
on?
It's almost like some track drills. We look a lot at what Lee Taft does. We look a lot at what Altus does. There are a couple of companies. Lee Taft is the godfather of speed.
Okay.
And we try to incorporate some track drills, to create some elasticity in the ankle, to create some stiff ankles, so that athletes can be springy. They can be a little bit more explosive, when they do get back. So looking at like A skips, high knee skips, lateral high knee skips, kind of little dribbles with the ankles, lateral hiding, so you're kind of jumping back and forth. Not just moving in that sagittal plane of motion, but moving more in the frontal, so side to side, and staying elastic and staying kind of springy and jumpy. Implementing little plyos like that, they go a long way.
Okay. You talked about that you've got some of your pro guys that are throwing live bullpens right now to hitters. Arm conditioning and something as a coach that I worry about is players coming back a little too soon, trying to throw as hard as they possibly can during the summer. Talk about the progression that you have your pitchers work up to so that they can get out and throw, live to hitters, whether it's, over a week, a couple week basis. I mean, what should players start doing right now to get themselves ready to go?
Sure. So what we've done is, in the past couple of weeks, we've got a lot of pro guys that get a lot of information from their teams respectively. And I'm not trying to change anything what they do. What my implementation is and what my job out there is to get them ready physically to throw. A lot of the guys that we have, we'll go out early and we'll start with some dynamic warm-up stuff. Just again, some basic movement patterns: crawling, skipping, hopping, jumping, just getting the body warmed up. A lot of what the guys have started with is low volume throwing and starting to ramp up their throwing volume and their throwing intensity. So they have to, again, let the arm get reconditioned. So just for instance, like our pro guys didn't even throw to hitters. They just threw bullpens. Our first week of bullpens were 15 pitch bullpens. Really, really easy, really light, just kind of feeling fastballs, feeling some changeups, no off speed, no breaking ball stuff. Just kind of letting the arm get conditioned. We're out there during the week with them, long tossing. We utilize the parking lot that we have here at the facility. They can long toss either before their training or after their training, just to kind of let their arm get conditioned to start to lengthen it out a little bit. And then last Saturday, we started implementing 15 pitch, live ABs. So they'll face 3 hitters and 5 pitches each, and then they're out of there after that. That's pretty much what we've been trying to do, is just limit, and again, start to ramp up, appropriately.
Yeah, and I think that's the thing that a lot of kids are starting to figure out now is, okay, well, how do I become more creative? And I think that it's not so much as you have to throw as hard as possible, as much as it is condition your arm, just like you're lifting weights or whatever. You got to condition your arm to get it back in shape.
Absolutely. And you got to be, that's okay. And just for the young guys out there, we've got some Major League Baseball players, like I said, out here throwing pitches, and don't waste pitches. If you're going to throw a 45, or you're throwing your flat grounds or whatever you're throwing, be aware and use every pitch and focus on every pitch, and don't waste any. Like I said, we got pro guys out here just throwing 5 fastballs, locate a fastball. Get good at the basics first before you really ramp it up, and sometimes a lot of the young kids get looking at these silly drills and all this crazy stuff out there. And the basics, the guys at the top are doing the basics like very well.
Absolutely. And we hit on the pitching side of it, Brandon. Now, as a position player, the legs are important and trying to work out soreness and things of that nature. Training to be in a 7-inning game when you haven't played in say, 3-4 months. Talk
Sure.
about those kind of things that you're talking to your players about in terms of getting them back into best physical shape that they can.
Sure. So for our position players, and really all of our baseball players, we have them training 6 days a week right now. That reason being is we got to be able to handle the work capacity of an everyday spring training, of an everyday schedule. So, I mean, you hear a lot of talks about baseball coming back and the possibility of doubleheaders and one day off a week. So when you start to think about your training frequency, it has to match the level of demand that you're going to take during the season. So, for instance, if your demand is to play 6 games or every day for 7 days straight, you can't train twice a week and think that you're going to match that work capacity. So what we do is we try to work in some days to where it's more aerobic based, lower level intensity, more aerobic based, and just keep them moving so that they're getting that aerobic work in. They're building that aerobic capacity, and they can stand on their feet for a doubleheader, or they can play in both games if we need them to. So just trying to build mobility circuits or movement circuits in to where they keep a low level pace and they're just trying to keep a good heart rate up to develop that aerobic capacity. That's kind of where we're going with a lot of our guys.
Okay. And again, if you guys have questions about from a strength and conditioning standpoint, please hit the comment section below, and we'll get those to Brandon. So you talked about what you're doing 6 days a week, Brandon. You guys are also running a summer conditioning program that, when you look at it, it's super involved in terms of, gaining actual weight, to put on during the season. Kind of briefly touch upon that and what it's all about.
Sure. So in the event that COVID didn't happen, our thought was we have a lot of kids that play a lot of innings during the year, whether it be for high school, whether it be for their respective teams. They play a lot of in-game. They have a lot of in-game time, right? And what we wanted to do is take those kids that maybe get a lot of in-game time, and they want to develop on individual specifics. Whether it be putting on more mass, maybe getting a little bit healthier, working on maybe individual development. And now that COVID came, I think that people are going to be scrambling to go to games. But what I think with that is all right, if you're on a travel ball team, there's 14, 15, sometimes upwards of 16, 17 kids on the travel ball team, depending on what team you're playing for. How much individual development do you get from that travel ball team? And not to knock against travel ball teams, I think there's a lot of kids that need, more playing time. I think there's a lot of kids that need exposure. I think there's a great place for that. But where I think a lot of kids can improve is maybe getting a little bit more reps, individually. Maybe getting a little bit more, nutritional guidance. Maybe getting a little bit more in the weight room or with a physical therapist so that we can correct some injuries or, kind of just get healthy. So that's kind of where we wanted to go with. We wanted to focus a little bit more on individual development. Whether the kid needs to put on 15, 20 pounds, 10, 15, 20 pounds. Maybe the kid wants to heal, a nagging injury and not just keep playing through it. So we try to design a summer program that would allow them to focus more individual, more self. That way, when they go back to school and they get, in front of those scouts, maybe scouts coming to watch, a senior play or a junior play, that way, maybe they have a day at that game, and they work on their individual development. And now, the scouts there, looking at another player, and then all of a sudden, that one kid has a day, and they're like, hey, maybe we should take a look at this kid as well. So, a lot of people always think they need to travel to go out and get exposure. Sometimes that's not always the case. Social media is a great thing, and a lot of coaches are doing a lot of stay-at-home stuff now. So, we're not sure how much development kids are going to get in exposure. So we wanted to develop a program that'll, allow them to hone in on their individual development.
And we got a question that came across. Nick from Fresno asked, I'm looking to put on some weight this summer. What are some things that I should be doing to, for eating? How many times a day should I be eating? And what types of foods should I be eating?
So with nutrition, we talk about trying to find out what works best for you. So what works best for me might not work best for you, Nick. And from that, I want to say, start off with writing down and taking a food log or a diary of what you're actually eating right now. And then after, 3 days or so, take a look at it, and now think about, are we eating, whole foods? Okay. So think about lean meats, chicken, steak, fish, stuff like that. Are we eating good lean proteins? Are we getting enough protein in? Are you getting enough carbs in your diet, to match your expenditure of energy? And then are you complementing that with healthy fats? Are you getting your veggies and your fruits and all that? And are you drinking enough? So there's a lot that goes into that. And I think simplifying more than trying to go crazy with all these diets or fads, try to just try to jot down what you eat and then go from there. And again, if you have any questions, you can always reach out to us on our Instagram. I think our email's on there. Send us a DM or anything like that. We can help you along too, but try to just start writing down and tracking, what you're actually intaking. See you, Josh. See you, buddy. So stay simple.
Joe from the Woodlands in Texas. I've started working out again for baseball, but I'm sore. What are some ways that I can help get the soreness out of my legs for my baseball season, which is going to start in the next 10 days?
Just start a little bit more mobility stuff. Again, dial back a little bit on the intensity or weight. If you're going a little too heavy. Jason, see, buddy. Okay. Dial back a little bit on the intensity and the weights for right now. Let your body, because you have to develop what's called tissue tolerance. You can't just go back and crush weight or crush, a lot of volume. Start back a little bit lower intensities, a little bit lower volume, and progressively work your way up. Incorporate some movement days in there. There's a lot of movement stuff in it, and actually we can start posting in the next couple of days more of our movement circuits, mobility circuits, so you guys get an idea of kind of what we do. Get out maybe for a light jog, light bike ride or something like that. Just get the body moving. A lot of people make the mistake of just kind of sitting and relaxing or, letting the body tighten up. So I would say, add in some mobility, incorporate some movement days, light jog, just get out and get the body moving. And I think it'll help out a lot.
Again, if you guys have questions for Brandon, be sure to put them in the comments section below. Now, Brandon, do you guys do for whether it's position players or pitchers, are you a big weighted ball type of a person, or give me your thoughts on stuff like that?
We don't use weighted balls extensively in here, only because we don't have a wall really to use it with. We just actually remodeled the gym and we put up a med ball wall, but the wall in between our buildings is not really sufficient for that. So we got to find another way. We may have to think about another route, but we haven't used a lot of weighted balls. There's a couple of pitching coaches around here that have, and we kind of incorporate some stuff with them, and we kind of let them take on that aspect. I would say this about weighted balls though: if you're a young athlete, I think weighted balls are maybe a little bit too much for you at the time. If you don't have a good quality strength base, if you're new to training, I think weighted balls can wait, until a few years into your training career. And I think if you find someone, you have to find someone that's maybe really knowledgeable about the stuff. And there's a lot that Driveline puts out. There's a lot of those, I think 108 down in Southern California has some stuff they put on weighted balls. We don't use any inside of our facility. I'm looking to gain more knowledge on it, personally, but do your research before you go find someone who just wants you to pick up a weighted ball at maybe 13, 14, or even early on in your training career if you don't have a good strength base. Those are, people can get carried away with them early.
Now, you talked about strength coaches and different guys in the Fresno area that use weighted balls. Regardless of where they're located at, Brandon, if you have a son that's looking for a strength coach and the first time they've ever touched a weight, what are some things that you would advise somebody to go, what, this is what you want to ask a strength coach to find out how knowledgeable they are, or whether you should start working with them?
For us, as our strength staff goes, we do a lot of continuing education in-house. We do some in-services. We try to really focus on developing ourselves, internally first as strength coaches. And one of the things that we go over is like educating the athlete on why they're doing that exercise. If it's just because, they should learn it, then I think you may have someone that may need to look up a little bit more and try to get a little bit more knowledge as far as why they're implementing that exercise. For us, each exercise in the program should be justified, by a quality answer. And if someone can't make it simple enough to understand, and if they're just kind of taking things off maybe Instagram or some of the silly exercises that you see, then again, maybe you should look somewhere else. But if they're having you, hammer the basics, and again, squat, hinge, lunge, push, pull, the basic exercises that you see, then that's maybe someone that's pretty, adequate and knowledgeable in that sense. And if you feel like you're too defeated, you feel like it's too hard right away, then that's kind of like a red flag. Training when the kid's early on should be confidence building. It should be, basically motor patterning and ingraining, neurologically how to perform a simple exercise so that you can build upon that movement pattern.
Now, Mike in Colorado Springs asked about, you referenced med ball drills and that you guys had just remodeled you guys' gym. What are some things from an explosive standpoint, whether it's a position player or a pitcher, that people can use a med ball for?
I mean, anything. So specifically with us, we try to get our early off season, we're more general in our med ball drills. As the season approaches and we get, later in the off season, we get more specific to their position. So if it's a pitcher, we're doing some more, overhead throwing and kind of, mimicking coming down the mound. If it's a position player, we're going more like a rotational toss, kind of by the hips or something like that. So again, develop that swing path. So we get a little specific on that aspect. I would say, if you're a young guy starting out with a med ball, start throwing that thing in different ways, as hard as you can, throwing it up as high as you can, throwing it over your head like a granny toss. I mean, just get moving in different planes of motion and get explosive. But make sure you have a good strength base and a good ability to resist force as well. So,
now, what are some different programs that you guys are running in the summertime, Brandon, that if people are from the Central Valley, can take advantage of?
Absolutely. So like I said, all of our programs are individualized. We can work remotely. We can work if you're far away. We utilize, again, the Zoom and a lot of our systems here that we have. We can send you, video references, video demos if you're someone that's living far away and you want to start training with us. We are capable to handle that remote training. We have had people come in. We've got a Washington Nationals player in this week, training for the week with us, and then he's going to end up going, I think he's going on vacation for a week or going somewhere for a week. But he's going to take his program with him. So it's capable for like a short-term visit, and then you take your program with you, and we can continue to program and train with you from afar.
Now, is that something that changes on a week-by-week basis, or is it like, say, a 4-week program that they go through it and then send the results back to you? How do you guys make sure, or monitor what they're doing as well as a progression, over the next few weeks after that?
So it's usually it's a lot of communication. It's open communication throughout the program. So, for instance, we had a kid from Chicago. He was training with us over there last summer, and he wanted to continue to train with us when he went back to Chicago. So what we do is we set up, at the time it was FaceTime, and now it's Zoom, but what we'll do is when he moves on to his next program, we have a conversation, how did you like it? Did you have any difficulties? Did you have any struggles? Do you have any questions about the program? And if they do, then what we'll do is we'll typically jump on a Zoom call. We'll video some stuff. He'll send it to us, and if we have any corrections, we'll jump on a Zoom call and correct it over that. And if he needs a demo, we'll send him a video. We'll send him a link with a video demo over email and all that. So there's a lot of communication that goes on, and it's just trying to keep lines of communication open, and having that athlete tell us, like, did they like it? Was there something they felt that they struggled with? Didn't really understand. And each program that we send them, we'll schedule a call so that we go over the entire program, and that I can run through exercise demos or anything like that, or explanations.
Terrific. Now, talk about your facility, Brandon. The trainers that you guys have there. I think I saw something about you've got 3 or 4 trainers on staff.
Yep.
Talk about the facility itself and just the staff you have there.
Absolutely. So myself is one strength coach and the owner and all that. We've got one coach. Her name is Savannah. She's from Fresno here locally, born and raised. She's finishing up her master's at Cal Baptist for exercise science kinesiology. We also have another strength coach. His name is Felipe. He finished up his exercise science and kinesiology degree from Fresno State. So we've got two coaches that are very smart, and they are very active in continuing education as well, which I love. They've got a great knack for developing maybe strategies that I didn't think of, on how to approach, developing coaching, certain drills. Sometimes for young kids or any athlete, they may not get a drill, and being able to adapt to, maybe how they learn rather than, showing them, telling them, and then demoing it for them, or maybe helping them understand by, saying a different cue or what have you. They're pretty creative and they're pretty smart in the way of doing that. So I can't thank them enough for all the hard work they do and, giving their opinion, coming in and day out, especially through, COVID-19 and our time off. They continue to come in and continue education every single day. And that takes a lot, especially when we're in a time of uncertainty and, maybe a lot of negativity right now. And they're very encouraging, which is awesome to have. They're great people.
And now talk about some of the use of technology that you guys have. You mentioned that you can do stuff remotely, and there's a lot of communication, whether it's Zoom or sending emails back and forth with videos. What kind of technology do you guys utilize at your guys' gym to help the strength process?
Sure. So we don't utilize it a lot, but we have what's called the GymAware. And what that GymAware does is it allows us to monitor bar speed on a certain lift. So if we're looking for a certain training quality, absolute strength, speed, strength, or absolute speed, we can attach that device to the bar, and it actually gives us real-time data as far as how fast the bar is moving. Typically, we'll only use it with our well-conditioned guys, guys that have been training with us for a long, long time that have an extensive training background. It allows us to really get specific in our training as far as, like, if we're looking for a certain quality, like I said, speed, strength, or strength, speed. It gives us the real-time bar speed so that we can adjust weight accordingly and not guess and be like, hey, was that fast? Was that slow? Was it too fast? Was it too slow? What was that? So it really gives us, knowledge at the tip of our fingers as far as if we need to maybe take weight off because they're not quite fast enough, or maybe put weight on because they're moving the bar too fast. We've got one other tool. It's called G-Flight, measures vertical jump. We've used it in the past. And again, right now, with all the COVID stuff, we're not able to use a lot of this stuff because it slows down the training just a little bit. And we're kind of on a little bit of time constraint with each athlete and each group that comes in here. But once we get open and everything gets kind of going back more towards normal, we'll start bringing that stuff out so we can utilize it. It slows down the training process just a little bit because you have to jump, maybe record something, or switch some data around, or toggle between different athletes or something like that. So certain places will use that.
Got it. Okay, Rich in Atlanta, outside of Atlanta in Marietta's asked, he coaches a 12 and under team. What's the biggest area or movement pattern that you would recommend that my 12 and under team really work on now that will have long-term benefits?
Sure. Get it moving fast. Sprinting's been shown, speed and power has been shown to be kind of the most trainable quality between, I think, 11 and 13-year-olds, 12 and 13, or 12 to 14. Get them moving fast. Get them sprinting. Get them moving in different directions. Change the direction, stuff like that. Open up their movement library. So we do a lot of stuff like we'll have them karaoke. We'll have them skip. We'll have them skip laterally. We'll have them shuffle laterally, just open up their movement library a little bit to where it gives them, a good understanding of moving in different directions. But pretty much just get them moving fast, get them sprinting, get them hopping, get them bounding, get them jumping, and then hammer home, good technique. Again, squat pattern, lunge pattern. Push-ups are a little tougher with young kids because typically they're not as strong upper body, but make accommodations, put their hands on the bench. Just drive home good patterns there.
Nick in Saugus in Southern California said, how can I get more information about the programs and services that you guys do, Brandon?
So you can email us directly at bulletgym@gmail.com and just drop us your name and kind of give us a little bit of background info on yourself. And, I can answer as much as we can through that email. And if we need to hop on a phone call, we can certainly do so.
Now you'd mentioned that you guys are doing training right now in groups. What constraints are you guys doing in terms of how many athletes you guys are working with right now, that sort of thing?
Sure. So we have a 5,000 square foot facility, and we have our sizes are capped at about 12 right now. We've got one in the office, and it's in a separate room, so we don't really count that. But right now, we're just kind of limiting the amount. Typically, we operate between, I'd say, around 18 at normal capacity. We have 3 strength coaches and 1 intern. So we can operate at like a 1-to-5 coach-to-client ratio, and we can kind of get 20 kids in here, 18, 20 kids. But we've kind of dropped that number down to about 12 right now as we're operating through. Every person in here, they come in, they get screened, they get asked, have you been around someone with COVID? Are you experiencing any symptoms? The 4 simple questions that have been going around for the CDC and the health department.
Got it. Okay. And you guys you mentioned the individual programs that players are on. Is that a 6-day a week workout program? Is it maybe, are some people on, say, an every other day program? Talk about that for what you guys are working on.
Sure. So we're pretty simple as far as what we offer. We offer 2-day-a-week programs, 3-day-a-week programs, 4-day a week, and 6-day a week. And what that does is that just really limits the amount of different programs we have to write so that we can kind of design as far as the staff outlines or maybe guidelines as far as what to program. That way it's not too crazy. You're not trying to guess what to put, what to mix and match. It's easier, more for like streamlining and scaling for us. If we got crazy in 1 day, 2 day, 3 day, 4 day, 5 day, 6 day, if we started going all over, it kind of just makes everything a little confusing. So we try to simplify a little bit, and also on the same token be understanding that people have hectic schedules and they may not be able to just do like 1 day or 2 day. So we try to give it a little bit of adjustment or a little bit of flexibility for people. So we came up with the 2, 3, 4, and 6-day programs. And those are all individualized. So if you're training 2 days, like I said, 2 days, 3 days, 4 days, or 6, every day is, for you and what we find from your movement screen, your training history, your injury history, your goals and sport played, all of that, combined with the information that we get back from the movement screen is how we design those programs.
Okay. David in St. Louis asks, for rest and recovery, what's best, a cold or warm shower after either training or working out, I would assume?
So there's a lot of research coming out that ice, and there's a lot of studies, I guess, that people are coming out with. Ice is bad, ice is good, hot, heat is bad, heat is good, stuff like that. I would say try it all. I mean, you're not going to hurt yourself by trying a cold shower or trying an ice bath or trying maybe some cryotherapy. You're not going to hurt yourself by trying a warm bath. So try and find out what works best for you. Some people use ice to this day to where if you ask the guy that's coming out with the Mark Pro, Gary Reinl, he'll tell you ice is the worst. and we own the Mark Pro, which again, that's not one of our technologies. It's kind of an advanced recovery therapy. But I think try everything. It's not harmful to try putting some ice on you to recover. It's not bad. I mean, some of the things that we try to do is again, get the blood flowing. So get out, get moving. Active recovery is essentially what we've used, and we've had great response from it from a lot of our guys. Get the heart pumping, get the blood moving, move through full ranges of motion, and that's what we've really seen a lot of guys, a lot of our pro guys love. Either after a throwing session or before a throwing sessions to get loose. We've utilized them both.
We've got about 5 minutes left with Brandon. Again, his website is Bullett Gym, 2Ls, 2Ts, gym.com. He's on Instagram, same handle, Bullett, bullettgym.com. And then your email, I think, was bulletgym@gmail.com. Anything else, Brandon? Any other piece of advice that you would give to kids in high school right now as they're getting ready for summer baseball to start whenever that is?
Advice I would give: just keep working hard. There's a lot of tough things going on right now in the world, and a lot of kids are limited, especially in high school. Maybe areas that they have are still closed or whatnot. Like I said, do what you can with what you have. Make the best of it. Get some buddies. Go out there with some buddies. Maybe get in the garage or the backyard or go to the park with some friends. Get moving. Go play a game of basketball. Have some fun. Enjoy and make the time worth it. And then once you're able to get back, then get back after it. But I would say just have fun and keep a positive mindset. That's pretty much it. Work together. Find a partner. Hold each other accountable.
That's a great piece of advice for not only baseball but for life in general. Hold people accountable and
Sure.
Stay positive with things. So, Brandon, I appreciate you jumping on and talking some strength and conditioning. And again, guys, I've been around a lot of strength coaches and finding somebody that's knowledgeable in your sport, especially in baseball, that knows how to train the body, how to get the body going in the right direction, and to see long-term gains. I think, Brandon, you guys do a phenomenal job with what you're doing. And I like the fact that it's small. It's got an individual approach to the workouts, and I think that's in this day and age, having that individual approach is critical for each athlete.
Absolutely. Thank you for your time. Appreciate it.
Absolutely, Brandon. Thanks for your time, and if I can do anything for you guys, let me know.
Absolutely. Thanks.